Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. It's a rainy day here in Central Florida. I had to take John out today. He's a client of mine well, not a client, but a real good friend of mine. I've known the family for 10 years now. I used to take care of his ex-wife. Now I'm taking care of him. But we've been like at Walmart shopping all day, and it's been raining. So if I don't look pleasant, it's because I've been wet. And I had to come running in the door when I noticed the time. So we have with us today the wonderful Kaylee Grace from Australia. She has something wonderful to be able to teach us, and she wants us to engage in this conversation as we learn a lot of things. We're going to learn how love creates freedom and what that means to us. And she's going to help us understand how we can gain that freedom that we need to have in our lives. I'm probably guessing it's not just grief, but life and even maybe mental health or whatever. But it's going to help us to develop ourselves to become a better person, so better for ourselves and better for those who we have a relationship with. So, Kaylee, I'm going to give you the floor. You have invited me to engage with you, so I'm going to engage with you and to be part of this conversation. And I want it to be a learning experience, not as a rudely interrupting experience, but as something that we all are going to hopefully understand what all this is about. And I can tell that by the end, it's going to be something rewarding. So, Kaylee, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. I was thinking, sorry, my throat's just decided to go, hey, let's just make talking just a little bit harder. I was just thinking as you were talking.
You can drink water anytime. You can drink water anytime you need to, okay?
I will. Thank you. I was thinking as you were talking, where do I start? Because love is kind of like the end point. And it's like the goal, the intention, the desire. It's what everybody is trying to aim for. And we all have these massive misinterpretations in life about what love is. And I am going to keep talking because Dee has popped off, but I know this is still recording and it's live. So I'm just going to keep talking.
I'm still here. No, that's okay. Here. I'm focusing more on you than me. So I'm still here.
Awesome. So it kind of gets really challenging because we go into relationships and we think we're in love, and we think we're present with the person, and we think we're connected with them, and we think that we're in this ideal relationship. But what was really interesting for me is that, and I didn't know I was actually going to talk about this today, is that I realized that I was not in love. I had a moment where I was single and I'd been homeless and I'd been through a divorce and I lost everything. And I managed to get some money to get a car and a caravan, and I was traveling around on my own, and I was in this farm down in Victoria in Australia, and I was doing all of this connecting work and all of this energy work. And I was sitting in front of the fireplace one day, and I just had this overwhelming feeling just fill me up completely. And I sat there and I looked at this feeling and I went, holy shit, I have never actually been in love with anyone that I've ever been in a relationship with, if this is what love is. If this is love, then I've never been in love. It was completely different. And that one moment it just opened up such a big journey for me. And my journey started before then. But for me, this moment started this unraveling of me trying to understand who I am in relationship and who I am when I'm speaking to people and who I am when I feel about myself, because I did not love myself. I didn't know what love was until that moment. And this was only maybe 10 years ago, a little bit longer than 10 years ago. So I was mid 30s when I finally figured out what love felt like. It didn't stay. That feeling disappeared. And this kind of my last 10 years has been this journey of unraveling all of the different stories, all of the different traumas, all of the grief, all of the hurt, all of the pain, everything that is constantly going on inside me, to come to that space where I feel that again. And it's been an interesting journey because for me, my upbringing was, and no one in my family will corroborate this, they will all say that it's not true. And they will all say that that wasn't the life that I had. But as I have learnt, uh, people's interpretations of their life is completely different. So their interpretation of what their upbringing is like is completely different to my interpretation for what my upbringing was like. And my upbringing was filled with isolation, and it was lonely, and it was so my one of my family members was my bully, and she stopped talking to me when I was 12, and I am now 47, and she still has not talked to me. So I've had the silent treatment for 30 something years. I cannot tell you why, but I can tell you that that changed everything for me. It took me from being part of a family to being completely isolated and segregated and pushed out and feeling like I didn't belong. I wasn't allowed at certain family events if this person was there, because it was too hard to have me there and her there at the same time. So even though she was the one that was basically bullying me, I was the one that was getting punished for it. And when it seems really, really silly, but when you're 12 and someone that you think is your best friend just stops talking to you, it changes everything. And I didn't realize how much it impacted me until I got into my 30s and I opened the door to start looking at my trauma and looking at my grief and realizing that every friendship I'd ever had ended. So I went through all my 20s, all through my teenage years. My high school best friends actually became my bullies. Through my 20s, my best friends just one day stopped talking to me. Call it ghosting now, but back then it was it was called the silent treatment. They just stopped talking to me. All through my 30s, friends just stopped talking to me. Ended their friendships with me.
Did you? I'm going to try to find the right word for this, but the only word that comes to my mind, because I'm hearing you and I'm thinking of some of the things that I know I went through was similar to you. Do you feel like it was sort of a sense of rejection?
Yeah, rejection and abandonment.
Yes,
absolutely.
That was the right
Yes.
word, abandonment.
Yes, for sure. The abandonment that I have had to deal with, because it wasn't just being abandoned by this person, it was abandonment by my entire family. Because my mum and my dad enabled it. My mum and my dad never did anything about it. They never sat in a room and said, you need to stop this. Like, this behavior is unacceptable. They never did that. They didn't look at this person and say, you need to stop this. They looked at me and said, this is your fault. You did this.
Oh.
Which is a completely different way
almost
of
like almost like a narcissist.
Yes.
They have a way of turning around and blaming everything on you.
Yeah. And I'm not a fan of the term because I think it's very much overused. But this was someone that convinced everybody that it was my fault and I had done something wrong. I did late in my 20s. I did find out there was an admittance that it wasn't my fault, that it was my mum was an alcoholic. And that was really hard to be raised in an environment. So my mum was a single mum, and she became an alcoholic around that same time. That she had a bit of a mental breakdown around 11 and 12 when I was 11 and 12. So it was everything kind of unraveled in that same year. My mum had a breakdown. This person stopped talking to me. My dad got remarried, which I think was the instigator for my mum's breakdown. It was a really interesting time. So, and you don't realize how much grief and how much hurt and how much pain you hold on to in yourself for these things that you think should be insignificant, but they're actually not. They're not
Yes.
insignificant at all. They're life-changing. And I remember when
Yes.
I first started diving into the pain of this experience, and it's taken me a long time where I would sit there and go, she ruined my entire life. When you go from...
And let me guess. She won't admit it.
No, it's my fault.
No, she thinks, yeah, I did no wrong. I'm the
victim.
I'm the one who's control the conversation or the relationship. I'm going through the same thing with the relative, and it really has a way of demeaning you, belittling you, and doing a lot of things to really internally, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually hurt you.
Yeah. Because what it does is it sets you up to be in a space where you start looking and go, if my own family members can do this, the people that are supposed to love me, the people that are supposed to care about me, the people that are supposed to nurture me, if they can do this to me, imagine what someone that isn't family could do to me.
Yes.
So it set up this whole dynamic where trusting people is really, I find it really challenging. I have a lot of cynicism. And I see the world with cynical glasses, and it means that you kind of see the world in a very different way. It means that you see things like when you look at the government, you see what they're doing from a very different perspective to what other people see. Like, you just see things differently. When you've gone through trauma and you have really deep trust issues, you see the world very differently. There are no rose-colored glasses. There's just this element of, I just don't know if that's true. I just don't know if that's real. And in relationships where partners would say, I love you, I would look at them, and in my head, I'd have this voice go, if this is what love is, then I don't think I want it. I don't want this. And that's what I started to realize was, if this was love, I don't want it. And that was kind of my journey of, I wanted to find what love really felt like. I wanted to understand what love for me felt like. And so when I went on this journey and I found love for me, and then everything changed, because I was coaching back then. I had a business. I was connecting. I was channeling. I was doing videos. I had an online TV show. Everything was starting to take off. I pulled everything down, closed everything down, shut down my business, stopped my TV show, stopped interviewing people, stopped having conversations like this that we're doing now. I was doing this 10 years ago on YouTube, when YouTube first came out, or 10, 12 years ago, when it wasn't a thing back then, and having these conversations with people. And when I shut everything down, I didn't know why. I know why now, because what I didn't know was that I was about to go through hell. I thought I had already gone through hell. I thought I'd already unpacked the layers of trauma. I thought, because I had been working through my onion layer, I had gone through finding compassion for my mum, understanding why she was the way she was. She wasn't the way she was because she wanted to be a victim and she wanted to be an alcoholic. She was the way she was because my dad had an affair, because she lost her firstborn son at 3 days old and no one was there for her, because she had an alcoholic father, because she went through abuse, because her sibling abused her. Exactly the same pattern. Stopped talking to each other. When my mum passed away, they weren't talking to each other. It's like this, it's this patterning that goes down. My dad actually ended his relationship with his sister because she became a prostitute, and it went against like everything in my family is about conditions. I don't believe in unconditional love. I believe there's either love or there's conditional love. There is no such thing as unconditional love. Like that term, I don't use. I don't agree with it. There's pure love, there's honest love, there's true love, and then there's conditional love. And I
Do you believe that because that's the way you were brought up? Or do you believe in that because that's what you've been experiencing?
It's what I've been experiencing. So for me, language is really important. And anytime you put something like unconditional, the brain, in my mind, the brain doesn't hear the it hears the conditional. And people say, you need to focus on unconditional love. So why are you saying unconditional love? Why not just say love? Why put the conditional in it at all? So I don't believe in an infinite universe. I believe in an abundant universe, because infinite is in the finite. So I look at words and I pull them apart. And if there is a limitation within that word, I won't use it. I will find another word that does not have a limitation within the word. So unconditional has a limitation. Infinite has a limitation because it's got conditional and finite. And that is how my brain works. That's how I look at language. And so when I'm talking about love, I'm talking about love. It's not unconditional love, it's love. Does that make sense?
Unconditional love for me, okay, is that without feeling I need to be criticized or judged, but people love me for who I am despite who I am.
So that's love.
It's love, but it's also unconditional love because you can still love me no matter who I am or what I am or where I come from.
So then you could use a term, and this is just me picking at words, and I do it for myself. You could say, I believe in love without conditions, because that's very specific.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
So what I wanted to share was, after I went through that experience and I tuned into love and I felt that for myself, then once I shut everything down and I thought, okay, I don't know where this is going. I don't know where my life is going now. And then I ended up, I got this very, very, very clear calling to get pregnant. And I had my daughter. And then basically my entire life fell apart, because I knew I was going to be a single parent. I had, she was a donor, so I'd already made the decision, but I didn't know I was going to be a single parent without my mom. And even though my mom and I had this really challenging relationship because she was an alcoholic, because we played the victim martyr game. So her martyr created my victim. And it was a very challenging dynamic, but still my mum and I had a very, very, very strong bond. Like ultimately, it was a very strong bond. And she got sick. So I had a traumatic birth with my daughter. It didn't go the way it was supposed to. Didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. But then when my daughter was 4 months old, my mum got diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and she wasn't meant to make it to my daughter's first birthday. So I was in 1 minute, I'm in this happy, fabulous world of love and bliss. I have this beautiful daughter. Life is amazing. To finding out when she was 4 months old, my mum is going to die and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't stop it. I can't change it. I can't alter it. I can't fix it. And what I didn't know was that my relationship with my mum was very much based on me, her controlling me and me trying to fix the things that were wrong for her. Like it was just this constant back and forth. And I didn't know that the relationship I had with her was my foundation. She was my foundation. So I didn't have love as my foundation because I wasn't raised in a loving environment. I have zero memory of my mum ever telling me that she loves me. She never has. I don't remember it. I don't have any
How about
memories
your
of it.
dad? How
So
about your dad?
my dad used to say, I'm only telling you this because I love you, but. So my
Oh,
dad was a
there's
very
that but.
conditional love.
Yeah.
And it's actually interesting because my dad died when I was 30. And I found out that my dad, uh, the I found out that my dad was dying on the day that he was dying because he'd been sick for a long time. When I was standing wearing a wedding dress and I was listening to the message from the nurse on the phone because I'd missed her call. So I was listening to the message, looking down at this wedding dress, knowing I was about to marry a man I did not want to marry because I didn't know how to say no because I'd been raised as a people pleaser. I had been raised as someone to make sure that everybody around me is happy. I didn't know how to say, no, I don't want to marry this man. And I'm listening to this message of this lady saying, you need to come to the hospital because your dad's not going to make it to the end of the day. And I remember looking down at my wedding dress, hearing that message going, yeah, that'd be right. There were a few extra swear words in there, but I won't swear on your show. But it was like, yeah, that'd be right. And that actually, my dad dying was the first door that opened. It was the first crack to me going, there has to be something more to life. There has to be something more to the mundane, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, life insurance, car insurance, health insurance, house insurance, work, go to school, go to university, get a degree, get a job, work in a job you hate, retire, travel, then die. Because that was my dad's life. And that was the first trigger for me going, there has to be something more to life than this because this is shit. I was in a job I hated. I was marrying a man I didn't want to marry. I ended up marrying him and stayed with him for
Oh,
5 years. Yeah, I did
I was
marry
just
him
gonna,
because I couldn't say no.
no, but what I was gonna ask was because you couldn't say no, probably because that's what your dad told you. But when you found out the day that he was dying, did not did that not click saying did that not click saying, oh, wait a minute, that means I can say no because I don't have to worry about pleasing my dad anymore.
It wasn't my
But
dad.
then you were afraid to please the man.
It wasn't my dad that I was trying to please. It was my mom. It was society. So I had been raised with a very strong mask of this is of just constantly seeking approval and validation because I never got it. And
Yes.
the big thing, which I was going to share later, but I'll share now, is the biggest thing that I got out of this entire journey was punishment. So
Mm-hmm.
I was raised in an environment where I was punished for being happy and I was
Yes.
punished for being angry because this person that stopped talking to me, um, they were a very different person to me. They had a very different body type. They had a very different figure. They were very different physically to me. And with my physical looks and everything, opportunities came that did not come to them. And because I got opportunities because of how I looked, because of how pretty I was, and because of how cute I was, and because of how loud I was, and I was very boisterous and very loud and very personable, opportunities came to me that did not come to them. But then when they came to me, because things like getting invited into the school play, I got invited to be into the school. It's little things like this. I got invited to be into the school play because they needed someone that suited me, but they tried out for the school play and they didn't get in. So because they didn't get in, I got punished. Because they didn't get in, I wasn't allowed to be in. So I wasn't praised for being this amazing human being that had achieved this. Oh my God, they want you in the school play. This is amazing. This is incredible. Let's support you. Let's go and watch the school play. Let's rally around you. Let's, make sure you've got everything you need. I got, no, you can't be in that. You should never have even agreed to it. You should never have said, yes, you'll do it. You should have said no. You should have known to say no. Like it's little things like that. There were just these constant little moments in my life where I was really friendly and open and charismatic, and I got punished heavily for it because this other person wasn't open, friendly, and charismatic. And so they didn't get the same opportunities as I did. So I got punished for that. So my upbringing was very much raised around punishment. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have spent my life, and this is why I couldn't say no. I have spent my life trying to squish myself into this box. And the box included get married. The box included have a mortgage. It included have a job. It included have children, have a family, be unhappy. Like that was my box.
Mm-hmm.
And I would and even now I still sometimes try and shove myself into this box in the hope that someone will like me, because I've always had this, so I just need someone to like me for me. But because
Yes.
most of my stories are, I had friends that I thought that liked me, but then if I didn't behave within the box, so if I stepped outside of the box, which I did a lot, they would stop talking to me and they would end their friendship with me. All of a sudden, I became unloved and unappreciated and unwanted. And of course, I mean, this was in high school, and which I get because we were all just kids. But then through my 20s, the same thing happened. And then in my 30s, the exact same thing happened. I didn't fit when I was grieving, and in my 40s, actually, when I was grieving the death of my mom, 2 weeks before she died, my two best friends that have been my best friends for 10 years ended their friendship with me. And one of them shared with me, "You're too controlling. You're so controlling. Like everything is just like you're so controlling." And I remember looking at it going, my mum is dying. I have watched her die for 3 years. Of course I'm controlling. Like, what do you mean I'm too control? Of course I'm controlling. My entire life is falling apart. And because my mum was my foundation. So what I didn't know until after she passed away was that she was my entire foundation. And I didn't know that until she was gone, because when she died, that foundation disappeared. And that's when my hell really started. I thought I was in hell when she was sick and dying, because I ended up with a really severe eating disorder and I almost died. Death came for a visit. He sat with me for 5 days. We had had conversations. And it was on the last day when I realized that if I don't change what I'm doing, he is going to take me. I remember looking at my arms and they were gray. They looked like my mum's arms the day before she died. They were gray. I could see the bones. I'd lost so much weight. I was just skin and bone. I was really sick through this eating disorder. While I had a 2.5-year-old. And I thought I was in hell then. But when mum died and I lost my foundation, I started to free fall because there was nothing. There was nothing there. There were no friends. I didn't have any friends. The two friends that I had just left. So I'm now grieving the loss of my two best friends, because now they don't want anything to do with me. I'm now grieving the loss of
Mhm.
my mum. I'm
Yes.
also
I was just
grieving the loss of this sibling, this family member, because now any chance of that relationship being healed has completely gone, because my mum was like the bridge. There was always in the back of my mind, well, maybe one day when I go to see mum, they might be there. And maybe there'll be some conversation that changes everything. So I'm now grieving the loss of that person as well as grieving the loss of being part of a family, because my mum was really the only reason that I was in the family in the first place. So now I'm grieving my entire family and grieving the loss of my dad kind of all over again, because it brought up a lot of grief that I hadn't gone through with my dad. And I'm
Mhm.
free falling because I didn't have a foundation. And so now I'm really in hell. Now I'm face first in the mud, and someone just reversed a truck up and landed a whole pile of mud on top of me and went, "Here you go.
Yeah.
You thought you were in the shit. Well, let's just give you some more." because you weren't even anywhere near as bad as you thought you were. So every time I went to grab onto something so I could stop falling, there was nothing there, and I would just keep falling. So the darkness, and like, people talk about depression, but this wasn't depression. This was hell. This was such a deep, deep, deep darkness. I've had depression for like since I was a teenager, and I've always been able to pull myself out of it. But this was something different. This was something deeper than that. And this
Mhm.
ended up with so constant flashbacks, like constant
Yes.
flashbacks, constant memory loops. I would be in conversation with someone and I would just get this overwhelming feeling of fear and hate and anger, and I would think it was them. So then I couldn't have a friendship with that person anymore because I thought it was them that was actually causing this feeling without knowing that it was flashbacks, and without knowing that it was emotional trauma. The panic attacks, I would have panic attacks most days because, of course, now COVID's coming in, which when you already feel unsafe, when you're already free falling, when you're already in hell, and then you have something like COVID, which is all about isolation. When you've been isolated your entire life, it's all about segregation, it's all about punishment, it's all about fear, it's all about control. When you've already lived in that environment and now the entire world is living that exact same way, it's like a whole new special world of hell, because now all of a sudden it doesn't feel safe to go to the shops. It doesn't feel safe to walk around my neighborhood because there are people wearing masks. And if you don't wear a mask, they virulently hate you. Like, these were people that were one day if you were walking past them, they'd look up and say good morning because, before all of this, we were all kind of friendly. Now it's like, no, if you don't wear a face mask, which I didn't for all sorts of various reasons, some of them medical. If you didn't wear a face mask, then you were in a whole new world of hate. I would go to the shops and I would have people hurling abuse at me. These were people that didn't even know why I wasn't wearing a face mask. They didn't
They
know
were
that if I
timid.
wore a face mask, I would end up in severe panic attacks because I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
But they didn't care about any of that. They didn't care that I had a medical exemption form. They just hated on me. So I'm living
Yeah.
my own special world of hell at home, and then I'd go out and then I'd be introduced to a whole new special world of hell. It's like, what? Did I literally
Mhm.
die and go to hell? Like, this is what? And so I was having panic attacks during the day. I was waking up in the middle of the night in full-blown panic attacks. I had called the ambulance on more than one occasion thinking that I was actually dying. Um, and I think one day I got to a point where I just went, I can't live. I cannot live my life like this. My daughter was going through her own special kind of hell because I was. Like, I couldn't hide any of this from her. I couldn't escape from it. There was no escape. There was no sitting down and watching a movie and disappearing into my cave. There was no escape from my own internal hell. So I think I just went through this. It wasn't one day. It was a series of months of me going, I can't, there's got to be something else. I can't do this anymore. I cannot do this anymore. I need something. Throw me a rope. Throw me something that I can hold on to, that means, like, I just needed a sliver. I needed something that would mean that I could get out of this hell. And I I heard I just heard one day, go outside, sit on the driveway, put your hands on the driveway and breathe. And I went, okay, I'm going to do it. And that's what I did. I went outside and I sat at the top of the driveway and I put my hands on the driveway and I was closing my eyes and I was breathing. And then I heard, now open your eyes and tell me what you can see. And so I had my hands on the driveway and I was looking forward and I said, okay, so in this moment right now, I can see that tree. And then I just got this, yep, you can. I went, okay. And then I heard this voice and it said, what else? And I said, in this moment right now, I can see the roof of our house. And then I heard this, yep. Okay. And all right, well, in this moment right now, I can feel my hands on the driveway. And then I heard, yep. Okay. And I sat there it was only about half an hour, but I sat there and it was like everything just kind of went, oh, there's something I can hold on to. There's something that I can trust. I can hold on to the fact that I can see that tree. That is true for me. So I can trust that. I can trust that I can see the tree. I can trust that I can see the flower on that plant. I can trust that I can see the blue sky. I can trust that I can feel the concrete under my hands. And it was this moment of just sitting there and making these extremely honest statements. There was nothing else I could do. There was nothing else would work. All I could do was sit there and say these extremely honest statements. And that moment has created this series of me helping people now who are in hell to find the smallest moments of trust. Because ultimately, for all of us, for every single person in this world, we do not trust. We do not trust our physical bodies because as kids, we fell over and got hurt. As adults, we've fallen over and gotten hurt, or we've had car accidents, or we've had heart attacks, or someone in our family has had cancer, or someone's broken an arm. I've broken my little toe more times than I can count in the last 5 years because I keep kicking it on something. It's really hard to trust in something that constantly hurts you. And people think that trust is a relationship with another human being. And if that person constantly hurts you, then that trust is broken. But what about when your physical body constantly hurts you? How do you trust in something that is yours, that you live inside, that has hurt you thousands of times?
Yes.
Thousands.
Trust has always been my biggest issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
It, in order to have a good relationship with somebody, anybody, just to have some kind of a friendly relationship, whether it's somebody in the church or somebody you work with or somebody you just socialize with, doesn't matter. Trust is one of the biggest issues I think a lot of us have. A lot of us.
Everybody.
I
don't think there's a person that doesn't have trust issues. Because something we were never taught to do as a child growing up was trust ourselves. We were never learned to. So I am teaching my daughter how to trust herself. I am actively teaching her how to trust that when she's holding on to a branch on a tree, to trust that her fingers will hold on for her. As long as she focuses and she allows them to, they will hold her on that tree. I am teaching her when she was riding her bike, I would teach her to trust that the bike would hold her. And I would use words like, can you trust that the bike will hold you up? Can you trust that your body has the ability to hold you in place on the bike? So I have actively, because I understand that no one really raised from my generation and beyond or even before me has been raised actively to trust in their physical bodies, actively to trust in their abilities. We're not raised to trust in our abilities. We're raised to believe that we are probably going to cock it up. We are probably going to fail, and fail is a part of life. And it is. But if you say to a kid, failure is inevitable, you're going to fail, just keep on going. But what about saying failure is inevitable, but if you can trust that if you keep on going, and if you can trust in your abilities, then you are probably going to succeed. And it's just that one word that we're missing. that we are not actively teaching our kids, and we were not actively taught how to trust ourselves. And so this is kind of my journey now, is to teach myself and other people how to start trusting in themselves. It's not even about trusting in other people, because once you start trusting in yourself, that will, I use the term spew out because that's kind of what it does. It spews out into the world, and you start being able to trust other people. But it doesn't work to just say, I trust another person, if you have never trusted yourself before. And I got that
But
so clearly when I shared about loving myself, and then realizing when I felt love for myself, and I went, holy shit, I have all these times I thought I had loved my partners and I never had. And I didn't know until I felt love.
yeah, but the thing is with me is when you think you do trust somebody, and then you find out in a way that they're sort of backstabbing you and
Mm-hmm.
not being honest with you and not
Mm-hmm.
going about it, what's a good word for it, like they're being dishonest or
Mm-hmm.
deceiving you, and yet you still find a way to still trust them, and yet you still have enough confidence in yourself to know that you know what your abilities are. You know that you can, what was it that you were saying earlier? You know you can trust yourself in what you are able to do and what you can do, but then you feel that because not enough people trust you and you don't know why they don't trust you, then all of a sudden you feel like, well, why don't people trust me? And then you feel the loss of confidence in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So is that, so then that goes back to, do you trust yourself enough?
Yes.
Do you, are you
Yes.
lacking that trust in yourself because someone doesn't trust you, but you
And
don't know
have
why
you
they don't
learned?
trust you?
No. And have you learned how to trust you? So if that were me, and I was looking at the external world, because I look at the external world as a mirror to what is happening inside of me. So if I had someone in my environment that, even though I was behaving in a trustworthy way and they still didn't trust me, I would take that as a catalyst and go, maybe I actually don't trust myself. I would see that as a mirror to what is really. And when you take the external world as an opportunity to see what is actually really going on inside of you, it changes everything. So if you go to the shops and you get a cashier who's an asshole and a bit of a bitch and is a little bit rude, and you walk away and you go, damn, she was horrible, I'm not going to her again, and you don't think anything else about it, then you've just missed an opportunity to learn something about yourself. Because you could have just as easily made the choice to go to another cashier that was happy, to go to another cashier that was delightful, that was loving, that was having a friendly, joyful day and had a really happy engagement. But you've chosen the one that's an asshole. And so I would walk away and look at that and go, where am I being an asshole to myself? Because
So
if
it's all
I'm
a
in front
matter
of
of,
that person, then I am doing that to me. That is how I view the world outside of me.
so it's a matter of the choices that we make at the moment,
That
in a
will
sense.
directly tell you what you are doing to yourself on the inside. So if you're having someone that is questioning your trust right now, then I would say you're questioning your trust right now. I would say that you don't trust you right now. There is an opportunity for you to have a look at trusting yourself on a deeper level and doing that work, and doing the work to
So
release
it's a
more
lack.
trauma to create more trust. But the trust, so there are two relationships, they work dynamically together. It's safety and trust. Cannot have trust without safety.
Mm-hmm.
And how many
Right.
of us who have gone through trauma don't feel safe? And this world, this external world, is not designed to leave you feeling safe. Look at the news, look at the TV shows, look at the movies. None of them are designed to leave you feeling safe. So if you spend your life watching the news, watching TV, watching movies, listening to the radio, reading the newspaper, reading things on Facebook, you are constantly installing this external world's not safe, this external world's not safe, this external world's not safe. And it's just going to amplify that feeling of not feeling safe, which is going to amplify things like anxiety and panic attacks and fear. It's going to make those things worse. But if you can look at it and go, okay, I can see that that the world is screaming at me that this world is not safe, and everything that you're watching outside of you is saying this world is not safe, then that is an opportunity to go, what inside of me is screaming, I am not safe. I am not safe. And it's interesting, before I started doing the safety work, I was in the city. I was in a neighborhood of people that were mostly masked, that were following the rules, that were isolating, they were locking down, they were doing all that sort of stuff. And I felt excruciatingly unsafe. So when I started doing this safety work inside of myself while I was in the midst of that, we moved. And now I live on 140 acres with no human noise. And I feel safer here than I ever felt in the city. And now that I'm looking at it as I'm having this conversation with you, it's like, wow, I wonder if I feel safe here because I built my safety levels up in the city, which meant I needed to go somewhere that matched that safety level within me, which is where we are now. And then as I keep working on my safety levels, my environment will become stronger.
And then you trust yourself a little bit more.
Yeah. Safety, trust, safety, trust, safety, trust.
Yes, that's a trust.
Yeah. And things like the positivity movement, the affirmations, and I did all of this, all the law of attraction stuff, the positive affirmations, standing in front of the mirror. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. If there's a voice inside of you saying, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not, it's not going to work. It doesn't. You can stand in front of a mirror and say, I am safe 500,000 times. But if you have not actually connected with that part of you that does not feel safe, you're going to keep hearing, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. There is a process to connecting with these parts inside of us that don't feel safe. It takes time. It's not, I had someone when I was talking to her, I think it was 2 days ago, I was talking to her about my coaching, and as I'm trying to understand more and more about what I can offer people, she said, you know what? You're a long game person. She said, no one can come to you for a week or 2 weeks and expect to change. She said, you are a long game person. You are someone who is in it for the long haul. You're someone that's going to take someone who is really in the shithole of life, who is in hell, and very carefully and very slowly build them up. Because that's what I've had to do for me. I have had to take myself and very carefully, I couldn't sit outside and just stand there and go, I am God, I am safe, and I love the world, because that was an utter complete lie. Even for me, when I was sitting there doing this, in this moment right now, I could not say in this moment right now, I am safe, when I was sitting on that driveway. Even though I technically, logically was, I couldn't. What I had to say was, in this moment right now, I could consider potentially, maybe, perhaps, possibly conceiving that maybe one day in the future I could potentially feel maybe a little bit safe. I was so far away from safety that the most honest statement that I could come up with safety was something that long that said I could maybe one day, possibly, perhaps, I might be able to conceive it. But now I can sit here and I can say, in this moment right now, I can honestly say that I feel completely safe from harm. And that is an honest statement for me.
So in a sense, I just want to make sure I understand this. So in a sense, my issues of having trust with people is because I don't feel safe with myself, or I don't feel safe with them.
You both. You don't feel safe with yourself. You don't feel safe in your human body. You don't feel safe in the world, and you don't feel safe with them. And that is the outcome from having trauma. And that is your own personal internal hell.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where the anxiety comes from. That's where the stress comes from. That's
Yes.
where the fear comes from. That's where the panic comes from. That's where I'm coaching a lady at the moment who she can't. Her goal is to walk to the end of her driveway and to go 2 driveways down and to stop anytime she doesn't feel safe doing that. That's how unsafe she feels in the world. That she can't go
Yeah.
2 driveways down without that part inside of her that feels so scared that she can't do it. It's hard for her. So we've spent the last 4 weeks just very carefully, very slowly, incrementally, just putting little bits of
So she's
safety
doing
into her. That when I got off the phone to her yesterday, I said, is it leaving
well.
you feeling overwhelmed to try and go 2 driveways down? And she said, no, I actually think I could do that. And I said, could you do that 4 weeks ago? And she goes, I couldn't even go outside my front door 4 weeks ago. I'm definitely not walking 2 driveways down. And so that's where I say this is not a fast thing, because we're generations of not feeling safe and feeling scared and being punished and going through trauma and being victimized and having the external world amplify that and validate it as well. So it's interesting. Our external world really strongly validates our internal world. So if you don't feel safe, I can guarantee you there are things in your external world that are constantly making you not feel safe. But what you can't do is get rid of them and feel safe. You got to feel safe first, and then that will change. That will shift. But it's all about feeling safe first. You cannot trust another person if you don't have trust in yourself. It doesn't work. You can try, you can keep telling yourself you do, but like you said, I trusted this person, but then they did something to hurt me. It's like, well, maybe they did something to hurt you because you didn't trust yourself. And if you did trust yourself and you did feel completely safe, maybe, just maybe, you actually would have had the voice to say to that person, no, bugger off, before they even had the opportunity to attack you in some way, to talk to you in a negative way. So for me now, if someone comes at me in a negative way, I feel safe enough in myself and I trust myself enough to go, bugger off. I don't need your shit. I actually had someone when I went to, this is an interesting story. When I went to the post office and I was picking up my boxes, one of the ladies had left a message on my phone saying, can you call us back? And remember when I said my people pleaser didn't even want to say no to marrying a man that I didn't, like I was so ingrained in don't rock the boat. Don't say anything that might even a little bit rock the boat in front of you, because then everybody, all of these people, they're not going to like you. They're going to be really mad. If you rock the boat, they'll be angry at you. So I went to the post office after hearing this message of this lady saying, can you call us, please? I turned up and she started having a go at me. And she said, you were supposed to come and pick up these boxes yesterday. I left a message for you on your phone asking if you could come and pick up these boxes. You didn't come. And I looked at her and the other lady was there and I said, hang on a minute. You're punishing me right now for something that I actually did not do. You called me and left me a message and said, I need to call you back. I called back. Nobody answered. Don't stand there and punish me for your bad behavior. I actually did nothing wrong. The only person that's done anything wrong right now in this moment is you, because you did not actually leave the message that you think you left. And those words came out of my mouth at somebody, at a human being standing outside of me that had a go at me. And there was this part of me that went, holy shit, what was that? Like, where did that come from? And she completely changed her tune. And she said, oh, well, I'm glad you're here to pick up your boxes. And I'm like, yeah, great. I am here to pick up my boxes. Thank you. And I put them in my car and I drove away. And I was driving home and I really dissected that moment, because I've never done anything like that where
Responded.
I have actually stood up and said, no, you actually can't punish me for this, because I have done nothing wrong. I've never done that.
So did you find, in a sense, did you find that pride in yourself for finally standing up to you for yourself?
Yeah, so I really wanted to anchor it in. Like, I really wanted to anchor that in. So I went in and I was talking to my daughter about it. And I said, did you hear me? And she goes, yeah. And I said, I am so proud of myself for having someone that was bullying me and punishing me for something I did not do. And I stood up and said, no. It's the first time in 47 years. I'm 47 now. And this happened, must have been about 6 months ago. So for 47 years, I've never been able to say no to someone that punished me. I've just gone, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I've never, ever, ever, ever even thought about it. Ever. And so it was like, this was a happy dance moment for me. This was a really happy dance celebration. What I am doing is working. Instilling this safety, trust, safety, trust, safety, trust, safety, trust in incremental levels. Little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. Because it's like anything, you do one thing at a time and it will build up. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes understanding. It takes understanding of all these tiny little parts inside of you. I don't just believe in one inner child. I believe in every single time you have been traumatized or hurt or gone through pain, there is a part inside of you that is crying, that needs to be held, that needs to be heard, that needs to be loved, that needs to be validated for the fact that it is sad, it is hurt, it is upset, it is angry. It is kind of like people talk about shadow work, but really shadow work is going in and looking at the deepest, darkest parts inside of yourself that are hurting and saying, you know what, I'm so thankful that you are there, because you are me.
But for me, for some reason, Kaylee, I got to figure out how to say this because it's going to sound, for me, because I don't know if this was for you or anybody else. I'm hearing what you're saying, okay? And it makes perfect sense. But I guess I still don't trust myself. I still have a very difficult time trusting people. And I forgot where I was going with this because.
So let me ask you a question. Is it you that's having a hard time, or is it a voice in your head and a very traumatized part inside of you that is having a hard time? Because this is the next phase of what I teach people is there's you, there are the voices in your head, and there are the really hurt parts. But you are not the voices in your head and you are not the hurt parts. They are part of you, but they are not you. So when we say things like, I'm having a really hard time trusting someone, it's like, are you having a hard time? Or is there a very damaged part inside of you that needs you to go and sit with it and say, I can hear you're having a really hard time trusting people and I understand. I get it. I really do. And sitting with that part inside of you that is having a really hard time trusting people. Because you as your whole human self that is connected to the divine or God or whatever you want to call it, I call it the divine. You as your human in your non-physical self that is in a physical body having this physical experience doesn't have trust issues. The human part of you that has gone through trauma and hurt and pain, the very real, very visceral human part of you, that has trauma issues. But you are this non-physical being in this physical body, and you have voices and you have feelings, and they're separate. And the joy, this ability comes in when you are able to really go, okay, what if I am not my voices? What if I can look and see my voices and decide whether I want to believe them or not? What if I'm not my feelings? What if I can look and see my feelings and decide, do I really want to have them? We live in such a world where we're so disempowered because we think we are our thoughts and we think we are our feelings, and we think that is all we are. We're just a series of thoughts and feelings, and we go through life completely out of control. And an analogy that I used with this lady that I was coaching yesterday was, to me, life felt like I was in a pinball machine, and I was born, and the day I was born, a ball was dropped into the pinball machine. Somebody flicked it, and the ball's just going ding, 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 and you've got no control. A thought comes up, you listen to it. A feeling comes up, you act on it. A thought comes up, you believe it. A feeling comes up, you respond to it, or you react to it. And we're just this constant series of having a thought, having a feeling. How do we react? What do we think? And we're just this ball in a pinball machine. But the gift comes when you separate yourself. And this is what I said to her. I said, my role is to teach you how to see that pinball, is to become so aware of your thoughts, so aware of your feelings, that you get to a point where you can see that ball going ding, 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 ding. And you see it so clearly, you can actually reach it and pick it up and go, now I'm in control. Now I'm in control.
Oh, my goodness.
Now I'm not
Oh,
my
my
thoughts.
goodness.
Now I'm not my feelings. Now I'm me. Now I'm in control. And that's the power of all of this, is picking up that pinball. That pinball, I really don't want to swear. I have such a terrible mouth. I'm such a swearer. I'm doing extremely well. But it's picking up that ball and going, F you, I am now in control. And I can't even describe to you the feelings and the experience that when you have a thought that's coming in that is negative, that's coming in, and you've never seen it before, and you turn your head and you look at it and you go, holy shit, is that what I've been thinking about myself? Is that what is that the shit that's been coming at me that makes me think, that makes my life be the way it is? Holy crap, I'm done. And that I can't even, the moment that I did that, the moment that I turned and I saw this thought coming at me and I looked and I went, screw you. Nah. I really appreciate the gift that you have given me up until now. I so appreciate that you are there as as something that has believed that I needed protecting, but I am done. I am done believing that you are the truth. You are not the truth. You are a lie. I am the truth. What I think about myself is the truth.
It's not just being aware that thought and that feeling is there, but it's a matter of also changing your mindset.
Kind of. So it's not a matter of changing your mindset. It's a matter of seeing the thought, picking up the pinball, realizing that you are not your thought, you are not your feeling.
Right.
But the kindness is already there. You don't have to change anything. It's already there. It's just being stifled and overrun by, it's almost like this negative voice has a megaphone, and picking up the pinball takes the megaphone away. And it's like, well, now what have you got? You are now a normal sounding voice, and you sound the same as the voice that I have inside of me. That is also kind and loving and caring and compassionate. That kind, loving, caring, compassionate voice didn't go anywhere. It's just that the negative voice got the megaphone.
So it's still changing that mindset to become more aware of that voice and those feelings, so that you know how to properly respond to it.
Kind of. It's becoming more and more and more and more and more aware of the negative voice when you get to a point where you can actually see it coming. That's not changing your
But
mindset, that's creating awareness.
yes,
So you're changing how aware you are of the
yes,
voices in your head, and you're changing how
yes,
aware you are of the feelings that you have inside your body. So you're not changing
yeah.
your mindset, you're changing your level of awareness.
Okay, okay.
Yet the whole
Because I
mindset
know
work
my love.
is
Because
go
I
on.
know, Kayla, of my awareness of a lot of other things that goes around me, that I can say no, that I'm not going to allow that to happen. No, I know when I don't know where you are spiritually, but I know where I am spiritually. That I can tell, okay, I know this is Satan working in my thoughts. He's trying to pull me down. He's trying to discourage me. So now that I hear what you're saying, I can say, okay, now I'm more aware of the thought, those feelings. I know how to properly respond to it and
Yeah.
adjust to it correctly.
And you always respond to it with kindness. And when I look at them and I say, screw you, that is screw you with kindness. It's not with
Yes,
animosity or fear or hate or resentment or anger or punishment. None of this is an opportunity to punish anything that is going on inside of you. It is always an opportunity to go at it with kindness and compassion, because all of these parts are here as a symptom to your upbringing. They're not here to punish you. They're not, the negative voice isn't there because, I mean, it is there because its kind of whole role is to try and keep you in separation. That's its
yes,
whole role, but it is really just acting out a role. It doesn't have any malice intent. It's not doing it to punish you. It's doing it because its role is to keep you in separation and to keep you safe. But if your
mm,
goal is oneness and your goal is connection, then you need to become so aware. You need to differentiate between you and oneness, your one connection between you and the voices, and you and your feelings. And all the
okay,
voices and the feelings, and also the entire external world, its whole entire job is to keep bringing you into separation. Your job is to become so aware when you are separated that you bring yourself back to oneness, and you eventually get to a point where you stay in oneness.
see, I one thing that really broke my trust issue is like when recently being hacked, and then people using my account to scam people, and it just like sort of like shaking my trust in people, of no of not knowing who this is, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what is the reason of them wanting to hurt me, or hurt those who I care about. It's And then just dealing with somebody else who I really thought I could trust, and feel like it's just overwhelming sometimes. So now
So
I
when
have
you
to
get to
just.
that point, you've got to turn to compassion. You have to go to
Yes.
compassion. So
Okay.
I I could hate my mum and my dad and this person, or I can feel compassion for them. Feel
And
compassion
forgive.
for the person that's hacked your account. So I don't necessarily believe in forgiveness, but feel compassion. The person that's hacked your account was probably someone who lives in a third world country that is getting paid $1 an hour, if that, maybe 50 cents an hour, to hack people's Facebook accounts, and all they're trying to do is feed their family. They're just doing what they have to feed their family. And if that is hacking other people's accounts that they don't know, that they don't have a relationship with, that they don't, like, there's no there's no realness to that, then they will do that. Because ultimately, people are living based on their own trauma and their own hurt and their own pain and their own limitations. And so whoever's hacked your account is doing it based on their own limitations. They don't necessarily believe that they're any better than that. They don't necessarily believe that they're worth any more than that. So can you have compassion for someone that feels so bad about themselves that they're willing to spend their days hacking somebody else's account?
And
And
not
then
feel guilty about it.
And not feel guilty about it. And not feel guilty about it. Because there's also this other aspect of, I believe, the thing that helps with the guilt is everybody is making their choices in life. And some of us, people say, yeah, but these are people in third world countries that have nothing. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute. There are people in this world who were raised in third world countries who had nothing and have made something of themselves.
True.
Because they chose to. So why would you feel guilty about someone who's not making the choice to make something about of their lives? And, I look at, I know a lot of people don't like Oprah Winfrey, but I look at Oprah and I look at her upbringing, especially when people say, I come from this small town and I've got nothing. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. Oprah Winfrey had nothing. She was raped. She was physically abused. She came from nothing. She came from less than nothing. She was molested by her dad. She lost a child. And look at her. Look at Oprah now. And she came from nothing. So it's interesting that I use people like that. And at the moment, for me, it's David Goggins. I don't know if you know who he is. But David Goggins is this amazing man who was brutally beaten by his father every day of his life, brutally beaten. And he has gone through horrific experiences through his childhood, things that no child should ever go through. And he's seen his mum get brutally beaten every night. Horrible stories of what he's been through. And now he went through Hell Week with the Navy SEALs 3 times. He did Hell Week 3 times. And he has run a 100-mile marathon with zero skill. He didn't train. He didn't have a coach. He found out on the Wednesday that if he wanted to join this race, he needed to join it on Saturday, and it was on a Wednesday, and he hadn't run. For years, he hadn't run. He was overweight. He was unfit. He was unhealthy, and he did the 100 miles. And his whole thing is about the mind and really, really disassociating and really separating yourself from the mind. But if he held on to the hate for his dad, and he talks about compassion, and he talks about having compassion for those that hurt him the most, understanding that they came from their own hell, they came from their own trauma, they came from their own journey, and they didn't make very good decisions. And this is a man who came from hell, and he was in a tiny little country town, and now he is incredible. He's an incredible speaker. And there's story after story after story of people who have come from nothing, who have been beaten, who have been raped, who have been molested, who live in third world countries, who went through wars as kids, who lost all their families, there's a lady who came out of Korea where all of her family were murdered in front of her. And now she's in America. There's story after story after story you can draw on. So while you can make the excuse for people and say, oh yeah, but they're in this situation, it's like, well, they're choosing it in one way or another. They are choosing to stay the victim because it's easier. It's easier. I was a victim for so long because it was easier. It was easier for me to live the victim role than it was for me to step up and deal with my pain. It was so much easier. It was so much easier to ask my mum for money than it was for me to earn my own money. It was easy. And so I look at the other person that has broken your trust, and I go, okay, so they're doing things or they're saying things to you that aren't very nice, and they're personal to you because you thought they were a friend or they're a family member. And I would look and go, okay, yes, they are doing this to me, and no, it's not okay, but how can I bring compassion to this situation to make me feel better? It's not bringing compassion in to make them feel better. It's how can I bring compassion in to make me feel better? Because how you feel about yourself is important. And
But that's
holding
the
on
same
to
thing.
guilt. Yeah, go on.
But that's the same thing as forgiveness, Kayla, because you're forgiving somebody because you need that peace for
Yes.
yourself, you know,
Yes.
and it may
Yes.
not necessarily be for them. It's mostly for
It's
you,
for
but at the
you.
same
Yes.
time. So I mean, yes. So
But
Kayla, I
sometimes
really
for me, compassion is easier than forgiveness. I find forgiveness really
true.
hard, especially towards the people that have hurt me. Like, really, I find it very hard to forgive. But
Yeah.
compassion, can I find compassion for them? Can I find understanding for them? Can I get why they did what they did? There was a girl in high school. She punched me. She was one of my physical bullies, and she would punch me. And I had a conversation with her actually in my 30s. Randomly, I was on Facebook and I somehow connected with her, and I shared that with her, and she said, "I'm so sorry." She said, what I didn't really understand back then, what no one knew, was that my dad was actually sexually abusing me every night.
So she
And I'm like,
was using
she
you
was
as a punching bag because she was
punching
trying
me because he was punching her.
to. Yeah. So she was trying to get it out.
And it really
She was probably trying to
that
find a way. She was probably trying to find a way to tell someone, and she did not know how.
well, she was like
And that
14,
was her.
15, 16.
Yeah. Well, some people still they don't. I mean, we can be adults and still don't know how to communicate certain things to people because of that fear
Exactly.
that some people have, and then again that trust in ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
so
she really taught me
Kaylee,
about compassion.
wow. So what is? So it was her that taught you about compassion and understanding that.
Well, she shared with me that
Oh,
she
wow.
had to find compassion for herself to get rid of the anger that she had for herself. To get to
Yeah.
drop the anger and the hate that she had for herself, she had to be compassionate
Yeah.
towards those parts of her that had experienced that. And then I took that into how can and I took that into my relationships with my mum, my dad, finding compassion for who they were as parents and what had they experienced.
So Kaylee, I really want to thank you for being here. I, I have learned something new. Not only
I
just
am
about
glad.
the trust issues or the thoughts, the feelings, the awareness, the compassion, being more compassionate towards people and understanding, even if even if what they're doing may not be right, there's there may be that understanding behind it. Anyway, um, I really would like to rebook you and bring you back because I think there is still so much more to learn about all this, and I find it to be what's the right delightful? No, I was going to use another word, and I know that's not a good word, but it's such a good learning experience, I should say, because it really helps you to think more, to understand it more. And I know I'm going to go back and listen to this again because sometimes the first time I hear things and I'm learning it, but when I go back again, I learn even more, you know.
Yep, I
So
get
it's just
that.
you too. So I mean, it's just I don't know if you know about Joel Osteen, but I used to have to listen to him 3 times, and it used to annoy my sister. Why are you listening to this again? Didn't you just watch this? And I had to explain to her. For me, I'm listening the first time. The second time I listen again because I want to make sure what I've heard the first time I didn't miss some other things that would
Mhm.
really help empower and enrich me that I can learn from. And then the third time I really get it all. It's like you're
Yeah,
eating all this wonderful good food and you want to make sure that you're able to digest it so that it
I get that.
really changes that mindset thinking, you know.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah.
really would like to, now that I know you live in Australia, I really would like to rebook you at a time that's good for you and I, and learn something new, like part two, chapter two of this, because I think there's so much more that you can share with us that is going to be another enriching and empowering moment. Tell us how we can find you. And also, did you write a book?
Uh yes, and I have ebooks, but I haven't written a book yet. I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. I can't imagine dumping all of this information in my brain on a book on paper, but yeah, I probably will at some point, but I haven't yet. But I have my podcast, Love Creates Freedom podcast, and my website, which is lovecreatesfreedom.com, and that has pretty much everything in it.
Good, good. That's really good. So we know where to go to find you, and whether you live in Australia or not, you can still contact Kaylee at, where can they contact you? Go through your website. You have a contact page.
Yeah, you can go through my website at lovecreatesfreedom.com or find me on Facebook. If you go, I think my page is Love Creates Freedom, and then my
Okay.
profile is under Kaylee Grace. But yeah, my page on Facebook is Love Creates Freedom.
Do you know how many Kaylee Grace there is on Facebook? Because when I went
Yeah,
looking for you,
but
I was like, oh my goodness, look at all these Kaylee Graces.
I'll have to change my name so it's a little bit more original.
But thank you so much for being here and for being willing to come and speak with us. And I would definitely want to book you again, rebook you for chapter two, and
Thank
find
you.
out more that we can learn from you, because you are a wonderful teacher.
Thank
And
you.
I thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank everybody for being part of the Unplugged Grief Ministries podcast. I hope that everybody that we keep bringing in, that you're learning and it's enriching your life and giving you those empowerment moments. I know it is with me. I look forward to learning more from you, Kaylee, and I hope others will too. And I hope you have a wonderful day, because I know where you're at is daytime,
It
while the
is.
rest of us have a wonderful evening or a wonderful weekend, actually. And next week we're gonna have oh my goodness, my mind just went blank on her name. And her name, first name is Linda, but she's got. We had her on, I think last year before we did the Global Grief Conference, the first one, um, Global Grief Network, and Linda. I hate this when my brain does this to me. Anyway, it must mean it's nighttime here and it's dying. It's going to sleep. But come back next week and we'll have another wonderful person here to share some wonderful stories and give us an experience that we all need. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. And Kaylee, I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks, Dee.
It's
It's been
been
so good. I've loved
really
it.
wonderful. I just wanted to ask, because maybe some other people may be curious. So, how old is your daughter now?
She's 8.
She's 8 years old.
Yep.
And is that doing a lot better than it was when she was? Your relationship with her is a lot better now than it was when she was much younger? Because I think you talked about that in the early part of your story.
Yeah, my relationship with her is absolutely phenomenal, mainly because I came at it from the perspective of really understanding that she cannot go through life with me without going through trauma herself. It's impossible. Like her first 3 years of her life, she watched me get really sick and almost die, and she watched my mum get sick and die. Like you can't come out of that unscathed. And
Yeah.
so instead of feeling guilty for that, and instead of feeling like I've done a terrible job and just waiting until it caught up with her, I have actually, since she was about to, focused on teaching her tools of how to deal with her trauma. So she knows about the two voices. She knows about the voices and the feelings, So she knows that there is a negative voice in her head that is constantly
Mhm.
trying to make her do things that she knows she doesn't want to do, that is constantly trying to make her feel bad about herself. It's part of the program. And so she calls it her mean voice, and she also has her angel voice. And so she makes
Oh,
decisions, and she's really aware. She came out to me. It wasn't that was a couple of weeks ago. She came out and she said, "Oh, Mom, I watched something and it wasn't that good." She said, my mean voice told me to watch it." And I said, "Well, what did you do?" She said, "I watched it." I said, "Did you hear your angel voice?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, my angel voice told me not to watch it." And I said, "Okay. So which one do you think might have worked better?" She goes, "Oh, yeah, I should have listened to my angel voice." I think I'm going to listen to my angel voice next time. So I am giving her tools, and I am
that's
developing
good.
safety and trust within her. And I am also brutally honest about where I am in life. I don't hide it from her. I share my journeys. I share when I feel scared. I celebrate when I succeed at something. Like
Yeah.
I'm very open with her, and she is an incredibly delightful kid who knows she can say no to me and not get punished for it. She's someone who knows she can come and tell me things, and even though I might be annoyed about it, that I still love her underneath that. And that has been a really big thing for me, was making sure that she always knows that if I'm mad, I'm not mad at her. Might be a little annoyed at her behavior, but I'm not
Yes.
mad at her. I still love her. And
But
so
at
they're little
least she's
things. Go
but
on.
at least she's not going through what you had to go through, or what your mother had to go through, or what your father had
Yes.
to go through. So you're
Yes.
making sure. I think we had a pod, or Tony might have had a podcast on this, as making sure that our generations, or the generation before us, is not repeating it through us and our
Yes. Yeah.
kids.
Tony and I had a conversation about that. Actually, I talked to him a lot about parenting and trauma and kids. I think that was our conversation, actually, was parenting through trauma, was
Yeah,
knowing how to parent kids differently. And for
yeah,
me, it wasn't about just trying to make sure she felt loved. It was making sure she also has tools for when she's old enough to, and she's got voices in her head that are telling her to do things, and she feels bad about herself, or she knows that she is not her feelings, and she knows that she is not her thoughts, and she knows that they are a part of her, but they don't define her.
right. Well, that's
And
really good.
I am interested to see how this journey plays out. I'm interested to see how she goes through teenagehood and adulthood, having this different perspective, because I think it will be
Yes.
very different to what I went through.
Yes, yes. And it's going to be a little bit more rewarding for her because she's got a lot more awareness than what you had.
Oh, vastly more awareness.
Yeah,
But she has a
that's
different
really good.
parent. Yeah, she has a
Yeah.
parent that's enforcing the awareness, not trying to shut it down. She has a parent that is constantly saying, "Don't step into the box." She will put herself
Yes.
into the box. She will go into the people pleaser because she wants to please me or someone else. And I will go, "No, let me open up the box and I'm just going to take you back out again. Don't put yourself in that box for me. I don't want you in the box. I want you out here being you. Don't do this because you want to please me. Do it because you value me and you love me." But
Oh,
that's a very different way to do
different.
things. Do
Yes.
something big.
Yes.
I say to her, "Please clean the room because you value me and love me. Don't do it because you want to please me. If you want to do it to
Oh,
please me, then I'd rather you didn't do it at all."
yes. That makes so much better sense, right? Even you said that. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for
that's all right.
sharing that. Have a good day. Have a good day with
Thank
your
you.
daughter
Thank you.
and
I don't know
have
what we're
fun.
doing, but I'm sure it's outside.
Have fun on your 140 acre farm.
Thank
When
you.
I heard you say that, I was like, oh, I'm so jealous. I would love to have a 140-acre farm. All
Yeah,
right.
I do love it.
Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Dee.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks.